Hi, I'm Katie from What Katie Did, and this week I'm talking about wearing corsets in the heat. And I'm filming in our studio, and we are going to be doing a shoot with a model later on today, so I do have the windows open to try and keep things cool. And our office is right next to a train track, so if you hear any whooshing noises, that will be the trains going past. So sorry about that. I'm trying to aim it in between trains, but we'll see how it goes. Today I'm going to talk about the rather unglamorous subject of sweat, and I know a lot of you have asked about, you know, how to keep cool and what to do about the sweat situation, and also about how to keep your corset clean. So first up, a couple of days ago I spoke about mesh corsets, and I showed you one of my antique mesh corsets here. And you know, to begin with, you think a mesh corset will keep you a lot cooler than a traditional 3-layer corset. But what you need to take into account is that you really should be wearing a liner under your corset. So you wear a liner in between the corset and your skin. And the function of the liner is to absorb sweat and body oils, because of course corsets aren't the easiest things to wash. And I'll talk about this later. So even if you are wearing a mesh corset, I mean, back when you would have worn this kind of corset at the turn of the 19th century turning into the 20th century, you would have worn a cotton chemise underneath, and you would have worn the corset on top. Now, when you purchase a garment, really it's up to you how you want to wear it. But as I'm talking about summer and sweat, I'm going to say to you that yes, you should wear a liner, and wearing a liner with a corset is something I do religiously. I've been wearing my corset. I wear my corset every day, and I'm just trying to think how long I've been wearing this one, because I've done several videos saying it's on its last legs and it's still going strong, but I have never actually worn it without a liner. And I have never actually washed it either, but that's moving on to the next thing. So my liners, if you look online, people are saying, oh, you need natural bamboo, or you need natural cotton, and you need something to absorb the sweat. My liners, which I've been wearing for nearly 10 years now, I bought them from Primark, which is a really cheap store in the UK, and I know that's not great, and I probably wouldn't do it now. But the challenge is when you start wearing a corset every day, is you need more than one liner. So if you're going to go out and buy like 7 organic cotton liners, then that's going to be just as much as a corset. So I went to Primark and picked up 7 tank tops like this. Most of them are black. I did have a couple white, and I can't show you the white. I know the white would show up better, but they've actually faded to grey, and they're quite embarrassing, but I still wear them. So this is a tank top from Primark. It's totally seam free, which is good. You might find if you wear your corset super tight that the seam, if you have a side seam on the tank top, it might irritate you, it might not, but that is something to take into account. So this has no seams at all, so it is just a circular knit tube. It's made of man-made fibres. I think the myth about man-made fibres not absorbing sweat is just that, a myth, because I mean, I've been taking notes since I knew I was going to be doing this video. I've been taking note, and my liners are getting damp and my corset is still dry and pristine. So yeah, first rule with corsets in the summer is, I'm sorry guys, you have to wear a liner. You really do. Several years ago I did a class about costumes with Catherine Delish, and someone there asked about washing old burlesque costumes, and she kind of said, you don't. So I mean, when you pick up old burlesque costumes, one of the joy of having them is actually the dirt and skin cells from previous performers, which is, you know, one of the unglamorous sides of things people don't talk about. And with corsets are similar. They were designed at a time, the heyday of corsets was at a time when clothing wasn't washed as much as it is today, and corsets aren't really designed to be washed. People think that the common perception is that you mustn't wash a corset because of the steel boning, and this is again, this is another myth. It is actually to do with corsets generally being several layers of fabric. For example, our corsets are made from a 3-layer construction, and you have a polyester fashion satin layer which is bonded to a cotton layer, and then there's a cotton inner layer, and then there's the cotton inside, and then you have a cotton waist tape as well. And one thing you know about cotton is that it does shrink a little bit when it's washed. So if you are wearing a corset which is a multi-layer and you wash it, it's highly likely that one layer will shrink more than the other, and that will give a wrinkled a wrinkled look. And again, this is kind of saying don't do what I do, but do what I say, because yes, obviously I've been wearing corsets for years and years and years, and yes, I have washed them and I have dyed them, but I own a corset company and I can afford to take the risk, and some have turned out okay, especially 100% cotton corsets. They've turned out okay. I haven't really noticed a difference in fit. But if you are wanting to wash a satin corset which has different, a mix of man-made fibres and natural fibres, then you need to be aware that the corset you come out with at the end might fit very slightly differently to what it started with. And interestingly, the same thing happens with designer clothing. I was reading about this a few months ago, and a lot of designer clothing is dry clean simply because they only make things on a small scale and they can't actually test all the different fabrics. So if you've got embellished fabrics, they can't actually test it and wash it. So as a safety thing, they just put dry clean it, because they don't know what's going to happen when you wash it. And that's kind of the same with corsets. So if you've fallen in the mud in a corset for some bizarre reason and you really do need to wash it, then of course you can wash it. You just have to be aware that it might change slightly, but the general rule of thumb is really try to avoid washing your corset. And this goes back to me and my trusty Extreme Vamp that I have never washed. Someone messaged in the week and said they're worried about getting stinky. I don't stink. I promise you, my corset is not smelly. It actually looks pristine inside, and because I wear it under clothing, it's pretty pristine. Obviously it does show signs of wear after a few years, but it is fine. And also because it's black, it doesn't show any dirt either, which I know it's kind of covering it all up, but it doesn't. If I was wearing one of our peach satin corsets, because my clothing would be rubbing on top of it, it would have lots of marks on it simply because dyes from the clothing would have rubbed off on it. So to keep my corset fresh, at the end of the day, I take it off and I hang it over the back of my dressing table chair. So presuming this is my corset, all I do is I take it off and I hang it up like that overnight, and that lets the air get to it and just dry out all the fibres fully should they be a little bit damp, and it really turns out fine. I mean, as I said a minute ago, it's not smelly. You wouldn't dream the fact that I've been wearing it daily for a few years, which is embarrassing for me to say. It sounds crazy, but it really is fine. If I needed to wash it for any reason, then yes, I would wash it, but I'd be looking at doing that really if I really had to. And as I say, I haven't had to. One thing you need to watch out for is if you do have a heavily embellished corset, is again that's going to make things even worse, is that you don't, because of the embellishments, you just don't want to risk that at all. If you feel you do need to freshen up your corset, then vodka's your friend, because you can put vodka in a little spray bottle and then you spray your corset and then you hang it up to air again, and that will freshen your corset as well. But if you do wash your corset and if you do spray it with a vodka mix, you really need to make sure you get it dry as quickly as possible. So you need to, you know, wash it and dry it on a hot day. You need to be able to hang it up outside where it can air properly and really dry all the way through, because what you don't want is to wash it and then having it damp, you know, drying for 3 or 4 days, because that's really not going to do it any good at all. Now we have a train going past. So those are my hints and tips. 1, please wear a liner, and I know it's your choice whether you want to wear a liner or not, but everyone who wears corsets regularly, and I say that pretty much hand on heart, everyone wears a liner just simply because it helps keep your corset fresh. It's more comfortable for you wearing your corset because it gives you a smooth lining underneath, and it just helps your corset stay pristine for as long as possible. And secondly, make sure you air your corset at night when you take it off. Just don't leave it wherever you're going to leave it. Make sure you hang it over the back of a chair or something like that. And you know, don't put it on your wardrobe or in a drawer. It needs to get the air circulating through it, and that will keep it nice and fresh. And I said in a previous video, I wear my corsets in India and Los Angeles, and I've been wearing them on and off in the heat in the UK. So I do wear them in hot weather, and I walk to work. I walk 2 miles to work when I'm in the UK, there and back every day, and I don't have a problem with smelly corsets. And I can assure you that I do sweat, even though I hate to admit it, I do sweat, and my corsets aren't stinky. So that's my tips for corsets for this week. And if you need to know anything else, please get in touch and I'll answer your questions. But in the meantime, I'll catch up with you soon.